What's good, fatherhood? There's a new level of masculinity, if we want to call it that, of manhood, if we want to call it that, of showing up. It's calling you. It's not louder, it's not harder, but it's quieter, steadier, more present, more dangerous, and more loving than anything that you've ever known, everything that we've ever known. The question is, I answer this, open up your notebook. I want you to journal in these podcasts. Will you answer it? Because most men never do. They don't refuse it consciously. They refuse it through distraction, through exhaustion, through armoring, through becoming so hardened to the world that they lose access to their heart. And if you're listening to this right now, well, you probably already know exactly what I'm talking about. You felt it. You've lived it. That version of you who is grinding, providing, carrying everything, doing it for them. And yet, somehow, and maybe this is the first time you're consciously admitting it, losing yourself in the process. So let me ask you a question that changes everything. And again, the notebook's out, write this down. What would your life look like if you could remove the armor that you've been wearing without losing your edge? Think about that. What would your marriage look like and feel like if your wife didn't meet you with hardness, but she met your presence with presence? What would your children feel instead of tension, they felt real, genuine safety? What would it feel like to be level and loving and lethal? Hard to kill, easy to love. What would that be like if you could have all of it? Not easily broken, not snapping easily, not too hard and rigid, not so loving that you're soft, you have no boundaries, you're a doormat, but balanced in your marriage, with your children, and how you show up in the world. This is the way of the samurai of fatherhood, of family leadership. There was a time in my life when I believed that hardness was the answer. Maybe you've been here. I was grinding harder than I ever had, building the business, trying to make this that you're listening to right now work, trying to create freedom for myself, my family, my wife, my children, and for the men that I serve here. And trying to shield my family from the uncertainty, the pressure, the fear that I carried every single day silently. And it hardened me. My nervous system was always on. My fuse was short. I was exhausted. But I couldn't slow down. Because slowing down felt like death. If I slowed down, who would speed up? Who would pick it up? If I put the load down. If I relaxed, everything could collapse. If I softened, maybe I'd lose the edge that enabled me to grind and show up and to put food on the table and to provide for them the way that I wanted to and the way that I needed to. If I softened, if I stopped grinding, if I just relaxed, deep down underneath. And this is where you have to look. You have to say, well, what is it underneath that? What is the fear? What is the root of that belief? If I stopped grinding, I might fail them. And not just fail them, but lose everything. End up on the streets after losing the house, and even lose them. So I stayed hard. Grind harder. I suppress, I bury it harder. We suppress, we bury it harder, we grind harder. I'll sleep when I'm dead. No rest for the wicked. Here's what nobody tells you. Hardness works for a while. Helps you survive, it helps you push through, it helps you build. It's meant for the battlefield, for the hunt, for the hard life that we have evolved for. But eventually, that same hardness will cut you off from the very people that you're trying to protect, that you're trying to provide for, that you wake up in the morning laying in bed knowing that you have to get up because you have to get to work for them. And all that you want is to lay in bed next to them, your wife, one of your little ones in the bed, if you're co-sleeping like we are, the ones sharing the room next to you. All that you want to do is be with them. But you get up into the grind and you get home at the end of the day and you don't even have the capacity left to really be with the people that you're doing it all for and that you don't want to get out of bed because you want to be with them. That same hardness will cut you off from the very people you're trying to protect. It's one of the biggest things that comes between husbands and wives when we are the sole provider and she is the sole nurturer at home, taking care of the kids, homeschooling them, running the household all day. We drift. But it's not even an unconscious drift. It's that we become locked. We men, providers, become locked into the hardness, the armor, the sword of provision. I was home, but I wasn't home. It's a whole different kind of absent dad that we're living with now, absent husband that we're living with now. I was sitting beside my wife, but we weren't connecting. And maybe you've done this. You sit beside each other on the couch. You're miles away, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but physically right next to each other, just wishing somebody would reach over, that she would reach over to connect. Just reach for me, please. I wish you'd get off your phone. Both of you are thinking the same thing. You're coping. I was doing this too. We're coping beside each other, not connecting. Come home and it's the most exciting part of the day, and like up the entire year. You come home from work, dad comes home, the kids run up to you, they run up to me. I wanted to be present, but I couldn't come down to really be entirely there with them. Sometimes it felt like I wasn't even in my body. I was physically there, but I was somewhere else. Like my senses were dulled. I didn't see, I didn't feel, I couldn't hear everything. And this isn't like deafness, but you can't take it all in. I was still in the fight. I was still in the grind. I was still in survival mode. And maybe you've been here too. You cope. You have a beer when you get home. You have a glass of wine, whatever. Bourbon on the rocks. Maybe it's when you get home. Maybe it's at the end of the day when the kids go down and you are in a room by yourself and your wife is somewhere else reading or scrolling. And you're like, yeah, this is just how I wind down 3, 4, 5 days a week. Not because you want to escape your family. It's not. You'd rather be with your wife connecting. Because you don't know how to come home, how to come down. Nobody ever taught me how to sheath the sword, how to take the armor off, how to take the edge off, because you don't need it inside the home. And I bet nobody taught you either. I have a vision for manhood, for husbandhood, for fatherhood, and it's different than a lot of guys that are out there. It might be too soft for too many. Those guys will wake up one day. The samurai understood something that modern men have forgotten. Even the Spartans, I don't know if you know, but they were known as fantastic debaters. People would come from all over the region to debate them, not just fight in battle, but they were the best debaters. They were also known as dancers. The samurai understood something that modern men have forgotten. They were not just warriors, they were also poets. They were gardeners. They were lovers of life, families, fathers. They trained to be lethal. They trained to be terrifying. But they lived immersed in lovingness, in the depth and the expansiveness of presence and the beauty of life here and now. They were evaluated by their breath and how many men would pass and how many men would fail this test. Nowadays, when you get home from work, the samurai had this feather held beneath their nostrils, beneath their nose, and if their breath disturbed it, if it so much as ruffled the feather, they were to be dismissed as a samurai. Because a true warrior was expected to remain calm, unmoved, even in the presence of death, even the most chaotic, the most challenging of times, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally. Their breath needed to be level, steady, unshaken. Because the breath, your breath, is the window to everything else internally. All spiritual traditions begin with breath. Inspire, to breathe in. Expire, to breathe out. Inspiration, to breathe in life, vitality. All spiritual traditions begin with it. And if you pay attention to it long enough and you pay attention to how do I breathe when I run, when I exercise, when I make love to my wife, when I'm playing with my kids, when I'm laughing, when I'm just sitting back looking up at the trees completely relaxed, when I'm throwing a ball with my children, when I'm anxious, when I'm scared, when my wife says something that really pokes into my deepest wounds and I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, and I'm hurt, you'll notice that your breath is different in every single situation. There's a way of breathing for every emotional state. And if you notice that, and like the samurai, you begin to train your breath, you begin to shift it, you begin to train it. Not allowing your breath to control you, but you begin to control your breath. You will realize that you can influence every single physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state. You can change things that the world of medicine says are unchangeable, that you have to take medication for and hope and pray that it's all going to work out. This is why we need a modern feather test. You have so much more control than you realize. A true warrior is expected to remain calm, balanced, level, steady, unshakable, even in the presence of chaos, of death, of pain, of fear. In the presence of your little children who are learning how to be in the world, even in the presence of your wife, who is a woman, who has different hormones than you, who is certain to be more emotional than you. It's not something to be taken personal. It's a law of nature. unshakable, steady, level, calm, even breathing. These were men, the samurai, who could kill and then come home and take their armor off and sheathe their sword and kneel beside a garden and nurture life. They understood that power. They understood that power was not just the ability to be terrifying on the battlefield, to be victorious, to destroy. It was the ability to remain present, fully connected to everything that's happening around you. The sound of the wind through the leaves and the trees, the laughter of your children, the body language of your wife, how she's breathing, the look in her eyes when she's in pain, when she's overwhelmed by the kids, when you're making love to her. And this is a call for you, not to become softer in a sense of weakness or more vulnerable in the sense of a boss battle, a vulnerability to exploit, to win, but softer, more open, more heartful in a masterful sense. Soft enough to feel and connect inside the garden of your family, because that's what it is. It is not a battlefield. Natasha Bedingfield, love is not a battlefield. It's a garden. Hard enough to protect and to provide and to get shit done. Present enough to lead, open enough, aware enough to feel into the ones that you love the most. That's what empathy is. Empathy, to feel into. Your nervous system wasn't designed for the level of stimulation and the level of being on that we're asked to be in most of the time. It was designed for survival, for predators, for real dangers. And when your ancestors encountered a bear, think about this, last ice age, the apex predator was Arctodus simus, a 1.5 to 2 ton bear that could run 40 miles an hour. They encountered him, and their nervous system activated instantly. Adrenaline, cortisol, heart rate rising, blood moving away from the thinking brain and into the body, preparing for action, for running or fighting. Shutting down digestion, shutting down production of sexy time hormones, shutting down everything unnecessary for one task, fight or run, for one thing in the mind, in the brain, which was overthinking, so that we can figure out how the heck we're going to get away from this thing. We're going to figure out every single possibility, everything that could go wrong. I'm going to figure that out right now. But today, there's no bear. There's email, there's bills, there's deadlines, there's notifications, uncertainty, pressure, things changing in the political realm. And your nervous system will react and still reacts the exact same way. You live in fight or flight every single day. Beta brainwaves, the signature brainwaves of stress, they dominate, cutting you off from everything else. Alpha, theta, delta, the brainwaves of flow and connection. And survival becomes your baseline. It becomes your default brainwave state. It becomes the default in your body, sympathetic nervous system dominance that's being locked in fight or flight mode. When you live in beta, you lose access to everything that makes you fully human. When you're in stress, you lose 80% of the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the thinking parts of your brain. You lose access to alpha, flow, presence, theta, creativity, playfulness, connection, delta, healing, recovery, and love. You become efficient, maybe, productive, capable, thinking about all the things that could go wrong, but disconnected. And then you bring that nervous system of home, of fight, of flight, of overthinking all the things that you need to do for work, home. Still activated, still armored, still in battle mode. And when you're in that mode, your family doesn't meet your heart. You don't meet them with your heart. They meet the armor, they meet the sword, the armor that you put on so you don't have to deal with the emotions that are going to slow you down at work, the sword that you have out to get shit done. And with that armor, well, they can't feel through into you and you can't feel them. Your wife says, "What's going on with you? I just don't feel you. I don't feel you anymore. I feel like you're not hearing me. You're not listening. Your kids are struggling and you can't feel what's going on with them, so you overreact, and then you beat yourself up about it later, and you're like, man, I wish I had slowed down for a second. I wish that felt really bad." Your sword is out, and so you get stressed. You feel the pressure at home, whether the kids are melting down, they're not doing what you're asking them to do, your wife has a tone, and instead of just meeting her and loving her, you react to it. Where you shut down, you run away, you end up stabbing them through your reactions with your sword. That's still out from work. And let me ask you this. What kind of man walks through your front door every single night? Is it the warrior or is it the samurai? Because there's a difference. The warrior stays locked in that fight mode. Armor on, sword out, and the samurai, well, he knows when to put the sword away, to hang up the armor. The warrior brings his armor into the home, the samurai leaves it at the gate. The warrior survives, but the samurai leads. And the difference is the mastery of your nervous system, the mastery of the transition, the mastery of shifting gears from the hard to kill warrior to the easy to love husband and father. Your breath is the bridge between war and home, between armor and presence, between survival and connection. When you inhale, your nervous system activates fight, flight, get shit done. And when you exhale, it relaxes. It softens, not in a bad way. It deepens, it makes you more here, more present. When your breath is fast, you live in survival mode. But when you slow it down, low and slow, you enter coherence. And we could talk about yogi centeredness and this term of balance, and everyone talking about how do I find more balance? But coherence is what we want. This is where alpha, theta, and delta become accessible again, where presence lives, where connection lives, where leadership, family leadership, real stewardship, being the gardener of the home, caring for them with the sunlight of your love. This is trainable. It isn't just a trait. The state of balance and coherence and steadiness and presence and empathy and deep connection. It's not just something you're born with and either you have it or you don't. It's a skill, like strength, like discipline. Something the samurai trained every single day, not just in their bodies, but in their nervous systems. They trained this. They trained their presence. They trained their breath. They were known to spend the first 10, 15 minutes of the day standing outside, hands on their hips, deep in breath, noticing the interplay of everything happening inside of them. Really here. And by spending time in your breath every single day, will train these states in your nervous system. You will change the structure of your brain, making yourself more emotionally responsive and shrinking the areas of your brain that make you more emotionally reactive. You hypertrophy the areas, we talk about gym, that make you a more patient, present, energetic, deeply connected, empathetic, loving man and husband and father to the ones that you love the most. So let me ask you this again. When your children see you, when your wife sees you, do they feel tension? Or do they feel safety, steadiness? Do they feel held? Do they feel held in strength, wrapped in love, and love wrapped in strength, or in this tense rigidity? Do they feel pressure? Or do they feel peace and play? Do they brace? Or do they relax and open? Because the people that you love the most, your children and your wife, they don't respond to what you say. They respond to what and who you are. Your nervous system will become their blueprint. Your presence becomes their baseline to what to expect from dad, from mom, from a husband or a wife in the future. And your presence shows them how to be present. Your regulation, your ability to manage your state, to get out of the stress and the monkey mind that results, the armor, being cut off from the people around you, being physically present, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually elsewhere, the sort of reactivity, frustration, taking it out on people around you, emotionally impulsive. Your regulation or lack thereof becomes their inheritance. You're not just raising children, you're giving them the blueprint for the rest of their lives. You're installing their nervous system. You're installing how they will cope with stress, whether they're going to connect to the people around them, whether they're going to connect to you when they're older, or they're going to cut themselves off. If you live with this armor, they will too. If you live with your sword out, they will too. If you learn to sheathe the sword, hang up your armor, to be not just the warrior, but the lover, the nurturer, the gardener that they need you to be, the strong, capable nurturer and gardener that they need you to be, you give them something greater. You give them safety. You give them presence. You give them the ability to fully become themselves. You give them the love of a man, a husband, a father who's really, fully there. And Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan had this viral moment. Is it better to be a gardener in war or a warrior in a garden? You have to be lethal in the world. Capable, strong, disciplined, especially if you're here. And if you're here, you probably are a sole provider, or you want to be that for your wife. You want to give her that life, and you want to give your children that life. And if you want that life, you have to be lethal AF in the world. Capable, strong, disciplined, relentless. You have to go. But when you enter your home, you have to be the gardener. If you're not able to do that, it won't just ruin the relationship with your kids because you're reactive, you're cut off. It will ruin your marriage. Your wife is going to say, "Where's the man that I married?" She doesn't feel you anymore. We have to transition because your family is not your battlefield, it's your garden. And your garden requires presence and patience and softness and attention and care. And the samurai understood this. They didn't live permanently in war mode, in battle mode. They transitioned intentionally, consciously, daily. These were men known to be found bleeding or dead on the battlefield who would either be holding a haiku, poetry, beautiful poetry written in their hands or tucked into their armor. You could be in the midst of death on a brutal battlefield and still connected to the beauty of life. These are men who would come home and hang out their armor and their swords and enter the garden to nurture again, to bring that part of them back online. Men known for creating mantra tea rituals, so present, so deeply there. They didn't live permanently in battle mode. They were able to do both, transitioning intentionally, consciously, daily. This is the path of mastery. Not choosing hardness or softness, but choosing both at the right time. Because too much hardness will snap you like a dry noodle, but too much softness, well, you have no structure. You will get nothing done. And the world is going to walk all over you. And your wife needs a man who's capable of being hard. You know what I mean. This new way is the way of the samurai father, the Jedi father, as I call it. Capable of being both hard to kill and easy to love and able to transition at a moment's notice when it's needed, depending on what is needed of him. We owe this to our wives, to our sons, to our daughters, because they need a man with the balls to open his heart to them and the willingness to put in the work necessary to be able to give that to them. To be an absolute monster who's capable of taming himself so that he can give them so that he can give them all of the love that he possibly has. He can give them all of the love that is in his heart, that he wakes up with every single day, wanting to just be with them more instead of going to work. That he does it all for, that he grinds so hard for, to provide for them financially, to put food on the table, to keep a roof over their heads, that he grinds so hard for that it exhausts him. He can't give that to them at the end of the day. They owe a man, and we owe it to them to put in the work to become the man who can come home and hang that up and have so much more to give to them. They deserve a man who can do that. Your wife and your kids, they deserve that. They need that from us. So I'll leave you with this. What would your life look like if you became the man your family feels safe with, who feels loved, and they feel loved by? Not just the man who provides for them financially, but emotionally, relationally. What would your marriage become if your wife felt your presence, the power of your heart and your love, really felt you again instead of pressure or exhaustion or neediness? or hardness or armor? Who could your children become if they grew up inside of your safety, your open heartedness, your empathy, your ability to get down on their level instead of your stress? And who would you become if you were able to remove your armor, to sheathe your sword, to become the man who's not just hard to kill, but so easy to love and able to transition at will? This is the call. The call to put in the work to become not just a warrior, but a samurai, a Jedi of husbandhood and fatherhood, lethal, level, and loving. And it begins with your breath. What kind of man is your wife getting, or are your kids getting at the end of the day? Or what are you willing to do to give them everything that you have to give? This is uncommon. And this is the work. Thanks for being here. And have an uncommon day.